I want to welcome everyone back to Real Natives. I want to go ahead and welcome my guests. We're going to go ahead and get started. So please tell us your name and your tribal affiliation. Oh,
Good morning. Yes, my name is Brijida Aleman. I am a disenrolled member from the Hopland band of Pomo Indians. My family of 97 were disenrolled back in 2016. My mother was a tribal chairman for 10 years. She was on the council for 13 years on our tribe. We weren't raised on the res, what my mom did is she made sure that no matter what, as I was growing up, she always made sure that no matter what form you fill out, always say that you're Native. That's the one you check off no matter what. And people ask you who you are, where you're from, you say you're Native. And so for me, I would have to say it was my mom, my current mentor, Dr. Flies with Hawks, and then several other people. Madonna Feathers, person that's come into my life that I appreciate, shown me to be proud of who I am, no matter what the reservation says my family is. Reservation politics is brutal. Instead of coming together, it breaks a lot of people apart. I think that someone that also was profound in my growing up would be my great grandmother, who actually was raised on the reservation and eventually got married to a man, a Native man that was lighter skinned. And through her stories throughout my growing up, she always said, she was removed from the res by her husband because of the abuse, the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the complex trauma that they experienced on the res. And she would always tell me, don't go back. You don't need to be around those people. They don't treat people well. And so hearing that, I just didn't know growing up, like, why? What does that mean? What does it look like? And as I've obviously grown older, I'm in my late 40s, I've grown to recognize how that trauma caused so much pain for her, and she didn't want that pain to continue on in our family. But we dealt with other traumas, not living on the res, being ousted. Once my mom realized like she had a calling, years ago, to go back to the tribe and to help and support and build our reservation. She brought our family together, and that's something that I'm really proud of. So I would have to say definitely a select few people in my upbringing have a lot to do with my pride and who I am as a Native woman.
so in 97, you had mentioned your family was disenrolled. By what tribe was that again?
The Hopland band of Pomo Indians. We were disenrolled in March 14th, 2016.
So you were what? And you were pretty young at that time. Do you know why they had disenrolled you or your family?
Yeah, it was basically they claimed that we didn't fit the lineage, yet there's historical documentation that shows that my great grandmother, a Wilder, had been on the reservation in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so there's documentation, there's even publications of that in a book of her being in a group of a whole bunch of women that were on the reservation. So there's proof that she lived there and was born there. But the current political people, basically it's but I guess in Western world you'd say Democrats versus Republicans, but in reservations it's family versus family. So this family was against our family, and it was like we were the white people coming in, and who did we think we were to come in and take over? Yet what was happening is because they wanted to dominate what the success that was now being created on the reservation, which had nothing. When my mom got there was nothing on that res, but she was able to utilize her efforts and her wisdom to get out to Washington, D.C. to demand that our tribe be given funds, to push for a compact, to push for us to have gaming. So we were able to build that over a period of time. And so when money comes into the mix, it changes people.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of that had happened with a lot of, I won't say a lot of tribes, but some tribes that they started disenrolling tribal members. They had their reasons to do that, and one thing I don't agree with this. If you could prove your family line and your family line been on there were even people that were adopting other tribal members and stuff at the beginning when they started doing the census. How did that affect your family being disenrolled? How did that make you guys feel? Being disenrolled from a tribe that's supposed to take care of you?
I honestly felt like, even though I wasn't born and raised on the res and wasn't exposed to the res as a child, as an adult in my, my mid to, mid 30s at that time when that happened, it really felt like, it's profound. It's like just the thought of that felt like someone was trying to rip an identity out from me. And I'm like, how is that a thing? How is that okay? Our family, we did our best to fight. Like, all of us showed up, all 98 of us showed up on the day of the court that they had on the res. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter what we said or did or the proof that we showed. A lot of our family is perceived as the white people, and yet that's something I've managed in my life and how to navigate. Is I'm too white to be brown and not brown enough to be Latina, and that in itself is trauma. Stepping into the casino surveillance department, knowing that I'm the only female, knowing that I'm looked at and perceived as a white person, and just because it's the daughter of the tribal chairman, she got this job. That was hard just to do that. But then when these men realized that I was about them and I was about training them, sending them out to training, and I was about investing in them to also help them, educate them to know that they were worthy. When they saw that in me, I built, this strength. I built this community. And so when that was ripped away from us, I felt like, wow, even with all of that hard work and that intention, it didn't matter, because at the end of the day, it was my family versus your family.
Yeah,
and that's hard.
Like I said earlier, it's pretty sad that does happen. And you mentioned that your mother was the tribal chairwoman. If you don't mind, would you like to acknowledge your mother? Who was your mother? Or
Absolutely, Sandra Christina Segala.
Okay. And so your family lineage or your family name was Wilder up there in Hopland. The next question I have, what was it like growing up off the res, knowing you're Native American, you've been disenrolled, and then you enter in society, or you mentioned you were living in society. What was it like growing up a half Native and a half Mexican? Were you called bad names for being Native? Were you called bad names for being Mexican? A little story about that. Oh.
Yeah, growing up, I never experienced that. Unfortunately, I experienced that as an adult from my own Native folks. You hear things on the res, you hear things from other family that are, just don't wish you well. And, they think they're Native, they ain't nobody, they don't know who we are. We're Native because we're the ones that lived on this res. And so you hear those things. And so I think right now, in the capacity, the role that I hold at the Santa Rosa Junior College, it's something that I have difficulty navigating, because I am a person that bolsters silenced voices, which are generally marginalized voices, Native folks, Latino folks, incarcerated, disabled people, undocumented people. So I am that person that is speaking for and standing for. And so, say, for example, on Indigenous Day, you know, we have this huge celebration on campus. It is hard for me to go up there and read a land acknowledgement and identify myself as a member of the Hopland band of the Pomo Indians. And so hard for me to say those words because there are people that are on that, that are members that are not disenrolled from my tribe that are at this celebration and know what their families did. And so to face that is still hard for me. And I have to keep pushing through to represent that it doesn't matter if you took my name off of that roll, you'll never take my blood. My blood is my blood. And so that's what keeps me pushing, keeps me having these conversations and being bold. And I've always been a radical thinker. I always think outside of the box, and I always remember where I came from. And
I do appreciate it. It's always, you know, it is a challenging time to know that I'm like that on a smaller scale. You know, I don't live on the res, but at the same time, they get my share or my portion of membership. I guess you would say they get the money for me, but I got nothing in return. You know, we had that situation with Northern Circle, when Northern Circle could only help people that live in Mendocino County, Sonoma County, and up there in that area. And they won't help anyone else outside of that, but still they're counting us as numbers. And that's something that I griped about for a while. Is like, I don't ask for no assistance, but I know people that have asked for assistance and they've been told, we can't help you because you don't live up here. It's like, well, why are you guys collecting that share of money for me, but not wanting to give it to me? You know,
exactly.
It's very, very, trouble politics is very, it's out there. You know, I'll just leave it like that. So if you want to share a little bit about your childhood upbringing, about what you went through, a little bit about you. It's about you. What's your story? Who are you?
Yeah, my story. Let's see. I what I will say is I grew up for a small period of time in poverty. And then in that, you know, my mother was in a very abusive domestic violent relationship with my bio father. And I remember it was my sister and I, we were like 3 and 4. And I remember my mom just, you know, to this day, I remember just knowing that there was something not right and got away from him. And a couple of years later was then with my stepfather, who I've been with now, I would say 45 years. And we were afforded, you know, a middle class lifestyle. He wasn't rich, but my mom was a hard worker. He was a hard worker. We lived in, you know, decent housing. We always had food. You know, I had that. And then my sister, my bio sister, ended up going back to live with my bio father. And that created a lot of disconnect and separation. My dad, unfortunately at the time, was into drugs and alcohol and abusing women, prostitution. But what was comforting about my sister living with him is that my grandmother lived there, and several other aunts and uncles lived there because they were all migrant workers. They you know, they're here from Sonoma County. They migrated here and, you know, worked in the fields and migrated. You know, when I got time to spend with my family, we would migrate up to Oregon and Washington for, you know, harvest, apples, cherries, you name it. I was part of that with them. So in that, I was sexually abused by uncles on both sides of my family. I didn't know what that was. But I knew that I knew that it wasn't right, but I didn't know who to tell. Eventually, it was exposed and it was kind of swept under the carpet. Oh, it was just it was a misunderstanding. And I lived with that, knowing like how hard that was to deal with. And then with my sister, knowing now as an adult the abuse that she endured with my father and how he treated her as if that was, his woman. It was just heart-wrenching and appalling, like, it's just awful. And so even though we lived in two different socioeconomic homes, we were enduring violence and childhood sexual abuse. And that in itself taught me as a mom, because I have two sons, ages 23 and 29. I have 3 grandchildren. That taught me to, no one will ever touch my children and generations after me. That will stop. That will not continue, because this was something as an adult, and I spoke to my mom about these kinds of conversations. This had been going on for generations in our family. And I am proud to say that I broke that. I broke that cycle of generational poverty, generational trauma, and because we come from generational resiliency. And so I'm very proud of that. And I'm proud to always talk about that, because that's something that most people still are very uncomfortable talking about.
Well, I do appreciate your honesty and your willingness to tell a little bit about your past. I'm sorry you hadn't endured that and went through that, but you're sharing it with people, and what they say, you got to share it and keep talking about it to get it out of your chest or out of your system. You'll never get over it, but we just learn how to deal with our trauma. The next questions, I have 3 more questions for you. So one of the questions I have is, who is the person that you would like to acknowledge or considered a hero or legend, someone that helped mold you, that helped create who you are to this day? Is there a person that you want to say thank you to? Oh.
Oh, it's a hard one, because there's several women in my life that have meant so much to me. And at the time as growing up, I didn't see that in them. And the person that comes to mind right now is definitely my mother. And as much as I have not liked her a lot of my childhood, the reasons why I didn't like her today makes sense. As a kid, you want to say things and you don't, because I was raised with, you don't disrespect your elders, you don't disrespect adults. And I realize now, through her parenting, it was the way that it was what she knew at the time and how to raise me. She did what she could with what she had. And then today, she's modeled strength, hard work, culture, for her to just know, even though we weren't raised on a res, she was still proud no matter what. She always said she was Native, even though she never exposed us to, song and dance and Native ways. In her own way, she was doing that. And I recognize that now. And today, for her to see how she had the strength to say, I want to go back to my res and make a difference, because I want to be a vessel for my family to see the opportunities and how we do live a strong life away from the res, but how we can help those on the res, because they're our family. My mom has a big heart, to the point where she was taken advantage of a lot, just emotionally on the reservation. And to this day, if she was offered to be a tribal chairman, in her heart of all hearts, even with all the, the bull junk that she's dealt with, all the hate and anger and just darkness on the res, I know in her heart she would. That's just who she is. And so I admire that about her genuine soul, her passion, her strength and her ability and her resiliency. Like, she literally has paved a way for me to know that her ancestors have made her strong, and my ancestors are here to show me that we can do this. We need to show our children, because they're the next generation, and our ancestors are there to uplift us and to hold us in these hard conversations. And my mom embodies all of that, and it's profound. And my mom doesn't have a college degree. She has a high school education. She's successful. She's been in education for over 40 years, making a good salary. You know, it's admirable to see what she's endured and how passionate she is about politics, especially Native tribal politics. Keep trying to get her to retire from the campus, and let her build and like really write her story. And because she loves politics, she's also our union president on campus, and she just loves, you know, working for the people. And that is one person I have to say that no matter how many times she's been pushed to the ground to her knees, she gets right back up and still keeps fighting for her people. And that is a person that I strive to continue to follow and do my best to honor that.
I have two more questions for you. So the question is, any words of wisdom, encouragement, knowledge that your great grandkids, great grandkids that we're not going to be able to see, any words of wisdom that you want to tell them or let them know?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Live unapologetically. Love yourself, love people, respect yourself. Together, we're stronger. Absolutely. Oh.
Last question I have is, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we're all going to make that spiritual journey. What do you want to be remembered for? Oh.
You know, this is something I talk about often, and I'm leaving a legacy of radical thinking, unapologetically being who you are, and that encompasses all identities, all being, however you see yourself. And I am a advocate, and I bolster those voices. And that's what I want to leave a legacy of just be you, and be good to yourself, be good to others. And what it is to definitely model what it is to love unconditionally. And that is something that is not easy. And though we have trials and tribulations in family, it's okay to love people where they're at, and it's okay to love and provide your own, you know, limits and space, boundaries around what you can do, to be able to honor yourself and to heal from whatever's happening in the family dynamic. And that's something that I definitely want people to remember me for, is like, even though it may be hard to have those limits and boundaries, what's the most important is taking care of you and being able to communicate what you can take on and just what you can't. And sometimes your family members are just not going to agree, and that's okay. It's called healing and knowing what you can take on. Oh.
Appreciate you taking time out of your day for the set down our conversation. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Please subscribe, leave a comment if you like. I want to tell everyone up north, Mendocino County, my family up there, I love you guys. Mom, I love you. And if you haven't, please go tell Elder that you love them. Life goes by way too fast. Check on everyone and help each other. That's the most important thing. This life goes by fast. Help each other.
Oh.